Hello to our program, Spiritism, Inspiring Lives. Today's reflection is about forgiveness. And we started by a quote from the Spirit Joana de Ângeles in the book Jesus e o Evangelho à luz da Psicologia Profunda, when she says, and I quote, "In the light of deep psychology, forgiveness is overcoming the disturbing feelings of revenge and hatred through self-actualization without letting us be hurt by the afflicted occurrences of interpersonal relationships." This is the quote and a thought that we will be expanding a bit more in aiming to help us to heal from resentment or hatred, because we do understand that forgiveness is the process that we all learn sooner or later, because we are all on the journey of healing ourselves, and we will learn how to release our resentments or anger or frustration or deceptions that we may bring storage in our unconscious minds. So considering that forgiveness is vitally important for the mental health, surely we all are aiming to improve our mental health. And yet, forgiveness is one of the methods which is available to all of us. And we can all learn how to do that as beings in evolution as we are. Forgiveness propels people forward rather than keeping them emotionally engaged in an injustice or trauma. Surely we all have challenges and difficulties in our interpersonal relationships, because we are social beings and we are all interacting with each other. It's starting even with our family settings. So in that way, we are helping ourselves to move forward, to heal, and also to engage in learning that we have different options, that we can do things in a different way. Forgiveness has been shown to elevate mood, enhance optimism, and guard against anger, stress, anxiety, and depression. So again, the importance for us to learn in our education process through self-awareness that we can actually elevate our mood and become people who are more optimistic in relation to the transitory experiences that occur in all of us. And guard us against anger. That is a process of becoming lucid and attentive of what emerges from our emotions, from our thoughts, so that we can always bear in mind that we have options how we think in relation to the experiences that may emerge from how we relate with others and how others relate with us. It's still Joana de Ângeles in the book Times of Health and Conscientiousness. She teaches us by saying, "The irresponsible person, when he does not strive to change what can be modified, transfers responsibility to the circumstances that he believes bad, to people, or blames himself, preferring to complain and feel self-pity rather to make efforts to learn from the experience." Surely, all of us who are interested in our mental health, it is important also to become aware that we need to learn to be responsible for our inner world, for our mental state, for our emotional state. And when I say responsible, I like to expand that by explaining that responsibility is the internal autonomy where we freely choose to change our belief systems, to actualize them, to renew them, in order that we can look at the same experience from a different inner perspective as we are engaged in healing ourselves. It's fundamental to understand that forgiveness is a commitment to change, not others, but ourselves. And it takes practice. It requires practice, exercise, that we keep on training ourselves in new ways as we are learning now, as we are evolving. To move forward towards forgiveness, we might consider in our lives on a daily basis, recognize the value of forgiveness and how it can improve our lives. fundamental to reflect about, because sometimes we are running through our automatic systems and we not even are aware of what we are thinking. And it can be very negative, very toxic. And in that way, we are actually working against our mental health, but we could be intoxicating ourselves more. It's also fundamental to identify that needs healing and who to choose to forgive. Because in our own healing process that we are going through, the process of forgiving ourselves and others, sometimes we may start with the one who is easier for us. And gradually, as we promote and become stronger within, we can also choose to forgive others who harmed us in a different way. It's always possible for those who choose to transcend their own ways of addressing experiences and people, because in reality, the experiences are neutral, but how we perceive them is where we are in our psychological and emotional health or not. And if not, we can promote that as long as we know what to do and how to handle that. It is important in this process to acknowledge our emotions. Surely it is. Acknowledging our emotions does not mean that we are validating them or that we are identifying ourselves with them. It is recognizing the emotions and also recognizing how those negative emotions, through the negative belief systems, impact our behaviors in a limited way, in a ill way. And if that is not addressed in time, that, yes, could become an illness on the physical body. Choose to forgive a person is really to choose to promote our own integral health, if you look at it from a different perspective. And also learning, as more as we are dealing with vengeance, hatred, and resentment, that usually comes from a very needy place within ourselves that we choose to look at and also to heal and potentialize, so that we bring the power back to us. Each time when we feel the anger towards someone, we are also transferring our own power to the other person. And that has nothing to do with the other, but it's the way that we are relating with us in relation to the other. And thank God that can change. We can learn to bring the focus back through developing self-awareness, to develop lucidity, and rescuing ourselves from those, let's say, old ways of the automatic systems, how we conditioned ourselves, bearing in mind that our goal now is to become healthier. Self-actualized people have an acceptance of who they are, and despite their faults and limitations and experiences, to drive to creative aspect of their lives. So self-actualized people, they are not perfect people. They are those people who are aware. They are essentially good and loving people, yet they are imperfect. They have their shadows, they have their limitations, and yet they are here exactly to promote those aspects, because we are all in this big school earth where we are learning about ourselves, how we are interacting with us, and also finding out how the negative mental state impacts us in a very negative way, and also which methods may help us to move out of it, because we have the potential internally to choose to think in a healthier way, and also to learn to forgive ourselves. When we talk about self-actualization, we bring in Carl Rogers, the father of person-centered therapy, who is a very humanistic approach and deals with these deeper elements and helping us also to become aware. And he says, I quote, self-actualization as a continuous lifelong process whereby the individual self-concept is maintained and enhanced via reflection and the reinterpretation of various experiences, which enable the individual to recover, change, and develop. He also carries on by saying, the human organism has an underlying actualization process, which aims to develop all capacities in ways that maintain or enhance the organism and move towards its autonomy. Translating Roger's thoughts, as we quoted, it means that all of us, as beings in evolution, we bring innate in our essence the ability to actualize ourselves, to free ourselves from our own limitations, from our own shadows, as long as we choose to explore our inner world as long as we choose to learn to get to know who we are. And then once we stimulate that self-actualization process, which is nothing more than the inner power that the soul in itself, through awareness, it stimulates the higher potentials that it brings with, such as the free will that we use to elaborate healthy belief systems and sustain them, to educate our own negative emotions, because we have a goal, how we are looking forward, how we are addressing ourselves, that we are healing ourselves. We are choosing freely to do that. And also Rogers complements, and I quote, a person who is in the process of self-actualizing, actively exploring potentials and abilities and experiencing the match between real and ideal selves is a fully functioning person. We can ask ourselves in our reflection, I am aware of my old way, the automatic way of responding in experiences that sometimes I may not like, I may feel threatened, I may feel fearful, and so on and so forth, as much as also be aware of my new way, how we choose to be, which is to be centered, which is to be more flexible, which is to be more understanding, which is to be more considerate, more compassionate towards ourselves and others. And all of that helps and makes it easier for us to forgive. Bear in mind that forgiveness means the ability to accept our own faults or own mistakes and put the effort into to overcome them and overrun them. Always also extending that to others, because in reality, we and others, we are considered the best versions of ourselves. So once we become more independent from our own inner shadows, we also become more independent of the shadows of others without taking so personally when they commit any mistake. Fully functioning people are in touch with their own feelings. It's fundamental to have time to reflect and to consider and to become aware who I am in terms of my feelings. What are my emotional responses in relation to people who perhaps hurt me, in a sense they gossip, they betray, or whatever happens in this world which we are so subjected to. What is my inner response, so that I become aware and also willing to promote in case it is limited or negative or against our own major goals, which is to promote mental health. Also in relation to developing our own intuitions. Intuition is the inner wisdom that the soul acquires throughout the different existences that we go through. But in this stage of our evolution, it's fundamental also to give some time to reflect and understand our intuitions, because sometimes, because of our limitations, because of our wrong ways of addressing ourselves and others, through our low self-esteem or inferior complex, we can be more identified with our negative limited intuitions, and as more as we heal them and promote them, we actually are becoming wiser, and our intuitions are based more from our essence within ourselves, and therefore the clarity, the discernment increases within our options in relating with us and others. And also it's important to understand that unconditional positive regard is an attitude of acceptance of others despite of their failings, of their mistakes. And this is precisely what we are aiming to conquer gradually when we talk about self-healing, which is to develop the ability to love ourselves unconditionally and therefore also others. And unconditionally means to understand that we are essentially loving beings, good beings, but we also have limits, negative thoughts or feelings, and we are here exactly as, let's say, educators of ourselves to help us to promote them and to change that. That is fundamental, unconditional love, self-acceptance, self-love, self-respect, which is fundamental. And then we can briefly reflect, what are the benefits for me forgiving, which is still so challenging sometimes for us, because we are moved by our inner hurts, by our inner negative feelings, by our wounds that we bring with us. And all of us, we still have some of them, or some people more, others less. But what are the benefits for me then to put the effort into to learn to forgive, learn to let go the grudges and so on? Well, letting go of grudges and bitterness can make way for improved health and peace of mind. Surely we all want to be more at peace with ourselves. We want to be more healthier, light-hearted. So we can consider the benefits of learning to forgive. Healthier relationships is starting with ourselves. We are less frustrated, less angry, less irritated, because we are more centered, balanced, calmer, through our new ways of understanding ourselves and others and the experience that we are under. Other benefit is improved mental health, for sure, in a short, middle, and long term, that is for sure. Less anxiety, stress, and hostility, surely, because when we choose to forgive, we are actually potentializing our high self-esteem, your inner confidence, your security, our self-worth, and so on and so forth. Therefore, the anxiety will diminish to the proportion that we learn to be in control of ourselves from our essence level. Imagine fewer symptoms of depression. Can you imagine how that impacts also? Again, we are talking about deep reflections that helps us to rest us from us in relation to others. And that power we all carry within. And another benefit is to promote a lower blood pressure. Because when we are angry, when we are irritated, when we are with vengeance and resentment, that impacts our blood pressure too on the physical body. Improved heart health. When we become more centered, more forgiving, more loving, more compassionate, we are promoting the health of our heart too. And improve self-esteem, for sure. As more as we learn to forgive, as more as we restructure our ways of thinking and addressing others in our minds in a positive way, in a centered way, in a healthy way, we are increasing our self-esteem, our inner confidence, and even self-worth, because that does not depend on people outside us, it depends on us only. Forgiveness leads us towards inner peace and harmony and facilitates our moral and spiritual evolution. We are essentially all spiritual beings, and therefore anger, resentment, frustration, irritation, these limitations or those shadows, they will fade away gradually as more as we promote our own growth, our own development from a spiritual level onwards, that we are three-dimensional beings. That is spirit, the spiritual body, and the physical body. And everything starts in our minds, through our thoughts, and we can change that. We can do that. To forgive is to learn to love ourselves and others. Therefore, to engage in our healing process. So, it's very important to learn to engage in this process here. To forgive is to learn to accept. To love ourselves means to accept our mistakes as learners, as we all are. Accepting our mistakes does not mean that we are validating them, neither ours or the others. But it comes from a loving heart. It comes from a loving dimension, which is expanding and also engaging willingly to remind ourselves, well, I'm really now with an obsessive thought, thinking negatively about someone. Well, I'm the first one who will be hurt by that. Let's me change that. Let's choose to engage in that process. And we can all do that. And in that way, we actually are engaging in our integral health process through forgiving. Let's start with the processes that are perhaps easier, but always with the focus within ourselves, that we are beings in evolution. We carry the actualization process. We carry the inner power of inner freedom, which we can choose to learn to think in a healthier way. Perhaps it can help us to change the picture that we imprint in our memory when someone is not in the way that we expect them to be. And that is possible on a daily basis. For example, imagine that everyone is a being in evolution, is giving their best. And we have the healing resources within to accept, to let go, to forgive, and promote our inner health, especially on a mental, emotional level, and consequently on the physical level as well. I would highly suggest that we choose, if you cannot do it alone, let's join a group who promotes mental health. Let's join a group who promotes transpersonal health in relation to integrating the spirit with the body, because everything is interconnected. Or even if needed, ask for a professional that can help us. The most important is not to get stuck and get ill and suffer through what we can if we choose to change. So let's try to be more forgiving towards ourselves and more forgiving towards others. It will be great good for all of us. I wish you well. Much peace to all. Hope to see you soon.